Hi, everyone. I am Jason Morgan, editor of Fleet Equipment, and welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted, the video interview series that connects you with the top minds of the industry. Today, I'm talking with Carl Weirn, head of risk and resilience that includes e-crime and cyber investigation with Mimecast, a company that specializes in cloud-based email management. Carl, how you doing? I know you're UK based. I have to say that is the coolest job title I've ever come across. So congrats on
It's
that.
awesome. I like it. Good morning. I hope you're well
Yep, we're
through
doing.
the lockdowns and everything, same as we are, I'm sure.
Yep, for sure. It seems like kind of across the globe, it's been interesting that it's kind of united a lot of us in the same way we're dealing with it, and even this is fun because it's like no different, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This is every video
Business as
conversation.
usual.
So you've released a report recently that definitely caught my attention. I think is important for our fleet manager readers, and a couple of those bullet points just to share was that in terms of cyber attacks and risk on companies, transportation was one of the top three sectors targeted throughout those first 100 days of the pandemic. And that,
Absolutely. I mean, normally, just to add for you, usually and in the last quarter, transport and delivery networks are usually the top targeted by total volume. Not in terms of specific, maybe high-level campaign activity, but general levels of attack are regularly the highest. It was actually quite surprising with the advent of the pandemic as it took off, that it switched very quickly from transport to retail over the holiday season, and that was sustained into the pandemic. And now what's happened more recently in the last 2-3 weeks is that manufacturing has now become the top target. But transport and delivery networks are always a prime target and hit very heavily with a general high volume of attacks.
so why is that? What information are those attacks looking to extract, and what makes transportation companies so interesting to them?
I think you're in a transportation is probably in a very unique position. It's very attractive to criminals because you're a supply chain, key part of that supply chain for multiple businesses. And really, what they're looking to do is they're looking for a weak link, whether that's in the main target they want to hit. If they then can't find it, they'll look at their third-party suppliers and their transport and infrastructure to try and force compromise there to see if you've got less security and obviously take the path of least resistance. In addition, we do believe that some of the targeting will be for political reasons, to degrade other countries or rival countries' transport and supply infrastructure. Undoubtedly, that's part of it, and that probably explains why it's sustained activity over a length of time. Just to add to that, for verification of it, the Norwegian Maritime Authority at the latter half of last year put out an advisory that the global maritime supply chain was being targeted by nation state threat actors at the time. So you can't discount that any of that activity is adding to that which is already opportunistic or criminal for monetary gain.
Right, and I just want to stress too that to your point, this is a global thing, right? So even if I'm a small carrier in the Midwest, maybe I only have 50 trucks or anything like that, but I'm delivering essential products and essential goods. I could potentially be a target for this, right?
Absolutely. At the same time, with the pandemic, what we found is targeting was already moving to become more opportunistic. There were some very focused campaigns against various verticals in the previous quarter, but it's become more disparate now. Targeting is, whereas before it might be against, say, a specific big name company or a business that we could identify. Now it's more against a range of businesses or organizations in a vertical. So it really is. I think that's also allied with a trend which was developing in the last quarter as well, which is ransomware becoming an even bigger threat. I think it really has been a bit of a cash cow for criminals, and I think really they're taking a rational choice by trying to get as much ransomware in as opportunistically as possible. Um, the the rationale I'd have for that is through my analysis, what I detected last quarter was a range of ransomware being used against a number of verticals, which ordinarily I wouldn't expect to see that. Ransomware is normally inserted as a secondary infection after something like Emotet or another malware has been used to drop it. So the fact that they're even trying to get in the most basic open source versions of ransomware probably speaks to the lengths they're willing to go to, and how much muck they're throwing against the wall, basically, to try and compromise people while they're going's good. Because obviously these people know they've got an opportunity with the pandemic, and with ransomware being effective at the moment. It's the consequence. These two things are coming together to create a perfect environment for them to launch an attack and compromise people with ransomware.
Right.
At the same time, ransomware, because of the various lockdowns and the processes that we've all got in place for social distancing, they know that the impact is likely to be more significant now. It's going to be harder for businesses to recover. In some cases, it may require complete replacement of infrastructure or technology because of those distancing or lockdown measures. So the odds to them of somebody actually paying out are probably increased, I would say, at the moment.
Right. Right. So, and to take a step back a little bit, so if I know nothing, which is very, very close to the truth about all this, right? Which is why it's interesting. You threw out malware, you're talking about ransomware. And I have an understanding that malware is a lot of, like, if you talk about layman's terms, viruses, anything that affects your computer. And ransomware will actually take over your system, lock you out, and make you pay to get back into it, right?
Absolutely. Ransomware is I would say, the top really, really nasty stuff that you don't want, because it will encrypt your machine. And 9 times out of 10, the only way you're going to get your information back, whether it's your private stuff or a business network, is by paying whatever ransom they've got. Or else your alternative is that you take your machine away and have it repaired. Or if you're a business, you may have a period of the FBI look at things like the Atlanta local government ransomware attack. They work on the basis that a ransomware attack may take up to 6 months to recover from if you're dealing with it yourself. So you can imagine, a minimum cost of $1 million. So we're talking, massive business disruption, and businesses have folded as a result of it. So really, it is a key threat that people need to be aware of at the moment. The things you can do in relation to that, really, it's something that's got to be thought about in advance, because it decrypts everything, which can include backups on a system once it's in there. You need to ensure that you've got offline backups, that you've got fallback email capabilities, fallback archiving. This is all stuff that Mimecast provides, but also other vendors as well. But you need to ensure those facilities are in place before the worst happens. The issue is really, if you haven't invested in that cyber resiliency capability, once it hits, it's too late. This is where businesses are getting caught out in the thousands. I think the Dutch National Cyber Centre at the end of last year again did a study, and I think over 18,000 businesses worldwide had reported that they'd been hit by some kind of ransomware. Now, if I go by my police experience in the UK, I know that police crime statistics are thought to be about 10% of the actual figure. So that just puts that in context as to what it's likely to be for reputational purposes and everything. It's a huge threat to people's livelihoods and their organisations. And really, the only way to continue business as usual is to have those fallback capabilities.
Right. No, for sure. And from the fleet manager's point of view, while they might not be in the IT world, they definitely talk with their internal people, their business systems on there. Most importantly, in our view, that's how they're running their trucks, right? That's how they get the visibility into where their trucks are, what their trucks are doing, how they connect with that, the fault codes, the service issues. So what would that? Everyone's a vulnerable entry point within the company, right? So are we talking about, is it an email attachment? Is it a link? Like, what triggers this, and how do I protect myself? Where do I shore up those weak links?
There's a couple of main things that are being used by ransomware threat actors at the moment in particular. Most malware threats, all ransomware, will likely be delivered to you in your inbox as an email. That's over 90% of threats are arriving with people that way, whether it's in the form of spam, phishing attacks, or all malicious software attached to it in attachment form or via a link you follow. My advice would be, at this time, never follow a link in an email. If you're looking for something, if it's a bargain, if it's an offer, a competition or an offer of money from the government for things like furlough schemes and tax incentives, always navigate to an official website using your browser. It's the safest thing to do. Links in an email, they can be easily obscured to look like something they're not, and you can't be sure you're going to the right place. Websites are easily mirrored. They can be easily completely copied. So actually, if threat actors put a little bit more effort in, there's actually no way you can very well tell that it's a different website from the official one. It's not hard to do. It's down to the effort they're willing to put in to try and scam you. In addition, attachments, if it comes from a source that you weren't expecting, it's unsolicited, particularly at the moment, if it's in relation to the pandemic or any measures in relation to that, I'd be very wary of opening it. If it purports to be from your organization, what I would expect is that organizations should have a chain of authorization or verification in place so that people can contact other members of staff and verify that that is a legitimate communication. Because we are seeing samples, as you'll have seen in the report, of things like HR enrolment schemes going out as if it's a new thing in a company, you know, and people are going to be caught out by those things if they're because they're at home at the moment. And I know people who are trucking as well, it can be a very lonely occupation. I'm sure moving through areas with lockdowns, the difficulty of actually sustaining yourself, even food wise, from shops being closed and everything is going to be problematic. And boredom and everything leads to people searching for information. And they might be tempted to click on those links because they're bored. It can be as simple as that. And over time, I think people will get more bored, you know, and there will be. It's quite an interesting situation, I think, for transport, because I think transport actually, in a way, or should be ahead of the rest of society. You know, loads of us. I'm used to working from home, but lots of other people haven't been used to working from home. It's a massive, you know, societal change really that's accelerated. Whereas people who are working in transport infrastructure are probably more used to it. So what I'd stress on that side is it really comes down to cyber hygiene now, because people are being locked down, isolated, and the measures that are being taken. A lot more of the onus for security now is being pushed out to the workforce. Individuals are having to make those decisions on what do I look at, what do I open, and it can be difficult and challenging because I think if you've been rushed into it without a plan in advance, like many businesses will have done, and you're not aware of the threats, it can be challenging to people who are not used to maintaining their own security, particularly when they've got their own, you know, Wi-Fi networks and everything to secure. Can I use my webmail on my work device? Something as simple as that. Do you know if that webmail is encrypted? You know, some webmail isn't encrypted. If you use it on your work device, you might actually be giving someone a very easy way to piggyback into your secure work network. So it's things like that, really, maintaining encryption, multi-factor authentication, the use of secure passwords, strong passwords at the moment and going forward are a very, very basic thing people can have. I'd recommend what people might try to use to make it more memorable and unique is small parts of songs or phrases that they like or they're interested in, because can be as lengthy as you want, and you've got more chance of remembering it. But the longer it is, the more secure it's going to be. And certainly don't reuse passwords across logins, because we've all seen there's so many breaches happening. If one site gets breached and they've got your password, they may just try other sites that use your email address to see if it works there as well. It is key to it. And multi-factor authentication in particular, that can save you even if your password is compromised, because if they haven't got access to your device, don't go to the lengths to copy the SIM, which, you know, people say, oh yeah, they can do a SIM swapping attack and everything else. In reality, how often does that really happen? Criminals are the same as us. They want to make as much money as possible in as short a time as possible, at least effort. It's the way it is. It's you know, that's the name of the game they're in. As much money as possible, as quickly as possible.
Right. No, and so you made a lot of good points there. I just want to highlight a couple of them. One, quick for clarification, just to simplify the two-factor authentication. People probably already run in that. It's where you put in your password, then you have to confirm on your phone. They send you a code or you hit a button or anything like that. Always a good practice. I think the point you made about drivers being on the road, fleet managers that might be in contact with them, and those phishing emails. I mean, I seriously, I probably get an email from our owner, but it's not from our owner, right? But it looks just like it. And you see those high importance emails, and you jump on them. You're like, oh my gosh, okay, I got to respond to this one.
Yeah.
And you really have to hunt, as you said, for, okay, double check the email address. Does this even make sense? I remember about a year ago when I was traveling on the road, I was walking between meetings, got an email from someone I emailed quite a bit with, and responded. I didn't open, but I was like, oh, this is weird. What are you talking about? Da, da, da. And then it took me a minute to go, oh, okay, that is a phishing email, right? It got me too. And you know, you got to be aware of it.
But what you've hit on there, though, is the circumstances of receiving it. Like you say, you're at work, you're used to receiving those emails. Are you really going to bat an eyelid at it? This is exactly what they're playing on. And these individuals are very skilled at what they do, and they're becoming more skilled the more they do it. So I would expect, and what we've seen over the period of the pandemic is those messages are becoming more professional. They're putting more effort into it, particularly the WHO spoofed website in particular is very, very authentic, appearing, and professional.
Right. Right. No, very good. So one more aspect that I want to touch on quickly. I want to see if there's anything that fleet managers should be aware of here. So you mentioned passwords, and they're using a lot of telematics devices, a lot of telematics dashboards that they're plugging into. Trucks are connected, the whole Internet of Things kind of approach. What are the threats in terms of the security between the truck and the fleet manager, and are there any equipment related connectivity issues that they should be focused on?
Anything that's been done over Wi-Fi is highly vulnerable. But that comes back to the point I made earlier about encryption. Ensuring that you're using secure communications, preferably by a secure connection. Obviously, never by public Wi-Fi at all for anything like that, and preferably over VPN if possible. Just because it adds a further layer of encryption to that communication. But at the same time, there is the potential for physical threats, because whenever your infrastructure or your vehicles are being updated, the software or the hardware is being updated, that's a point really of risk. Many vehicles are left overnight or in laybys is the way it happens in the UK, and they're vulnerable to physical attack. And what we did see last quarter as well, which I was quite surprised at, is a number of detections of a malware called Cottonmouth. And what that's based on is a previously leaked USB related malware. So what that suggests is that individuals are either leaving. The old way it used to happen is you leave things like USB sticks, like you get a black hat or something like that. Right. And then obviously what it's going to try and do is got malware on it, and it tries to compromise you. Right. So anything like that, any freebies like that, should be avoided like the plague. And it's you just got to be wary of what you're plugging in. Right. And obviously what you could be aware of is your own employees as well. Can they be trusted? Are they trusted individuals, and are the processes logged properly? Right. And kept track of? I mean, there's a whole gambit of all of those things to be aware of. But I would say the point of most vulnerability is anything that is going over a Wi-Fi connection can be intercepted. And I mean, there's devices out there where you may, even looking at the name of the connection you're connected to, may be spoofed. There's devices that automatically detect the name of the network you're trying to connect to, and they will rename themselves and allow you to connect so that they can steal your data. So it's something to be aware of there. The best thing to do in those cases is if you've got any insecure connection technology like Bluetooth or anything that isn't encrypted, it's best to clear your connections each time and then re-establish them via password or something next time you connect. Because otherwise it may automatically connect to a false connection.
Okay, right. No, for sure. And I think one of the big points too here is, even for me, and I think people that maybe aren't in this world, but we use it every day, this is our world, uh, is that it's easy to get inside your head when you're thinking about it. Like right now, I'm pretty much on the verge of a panic attack thinking about all the airport Wi-Fi's that I've ever connected to, right? Like I'm like, oh, this is a problem. But on the fleet side, the business side, that's why they have partners, right? If they have questions, reach out. They're not alone in this. You can protect yourself as best as you can with any kind of security practice, and talk to the I mean, that's why I'm talking with you, right? Talk to the professionals and get the best practices.
Look, I was a Metropolitan Police officer working on cybercrime and fraud as a specialist. Anything that was over £1 million in value in London would come through me to be tasked, and I did that for at least a couple of years. That 90% of these attacks, albeit they're by email, you can stop a similar number of these attacks by very, very simple basic measures. And your IT security, the processes that your business and organization have got in place, they're an extra layer that are going to help you. But really, the thing that makes the biggest difference is going to be your adherence to safe guidelines in strong passwords, and using the systems that are in place to protect you. Key to that is, it may be that you find a particular process a bit onerous. Don't circumvent it. Don't be tempted to use another thing like Dropbox to deliver a file that may be unprotected or unscanned. It's just not worth it. Take that little bit of extra time. Yes, it may be a bit onerous, but you're protecting your organization and possibly your livelihood at the same time.
Right, for sure. Carl, this was fascinating. I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for joining us. Stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you again soon.
You too. Thank you for your time.